All right. Hey, everyone online. We'll just let you know we'll be starting at 1:05, so feel free to grab a cup of coffee or anything, and we get started shortly. Yeah, so to give you an overview, I'll overview how to create an opportunity, but the main thing that you'll want to do is from the contact record in command. You can make opportunities a couple different ways, of course, directly from the opportunities section in command or directly from a contact, which is what I recommend. Perfect. And just a reminder, if you have a husband and a wife on the transaction or two people signing, right, that would just be set up as two separate contacts in command so they can both separately sign. But when you go to create an opportunity, like from the contact record, and feel free to stop me if I lose you at all, but that's when we go into the opportunities tab on the right-hand side. So I can see, okay, have I already created an opportunity for this contact? So I can just go in and click on it, or do I need to go ahead and create a new opportunity? So if you haven't already for today's class, you can go ahead and click create opportunity just so we have a test opportunity. We'll be focusing on the more advanced DocuSign settings today, but of course, it's really important that when you are starting a transaction in DocuSign, right, is that you're starting it in command, right? So when you initially start your transactions, it's really important you do not go to DocuSign directly to create that initially, right? We always want to start that transaction in command, right? From creating this opportunity. So the three fields that we have to fill out every time, right, we create this is that opportunity type. So whether that's a listing, buyer, landlord, or tenant. The second field we have to fill out is our client. So that's auto-filling since I created it here. If there is a co-seller on the transaction, if you have those linked, it'll pop right up, or you can go ahead and add the co-seller. But as you can see, those clients are entered in separately in command. And last but not least, you'll put in your expected commission rate, just a hot topic these days. So we'll just put in that 3 for now. That is changeable though. Right, well, shoot for the stars, right? The commission rate. So whatever you typically get, that will be changeable. I'll ask you again what your commission rate is when you actually go under contract. So that's just to give you an approximation of what your income is on your opportunity pipeline, which we'll take a look at later in class today. And you can click on create. So again, 3 fields I had to fill out, right, are the opportunity type, so listing, the client's name, and the commission rate. And I can click create. Okay, so now that I created that opportunity, I can simply click on the opportunity name, and this is how we get into DocuSign, right? So you get into DocuSign, especially creating that DocuSign room for the first time by step 1, creating an opportunity, and step 2, clicking on that opportunity to open it up. Okay, and I do have the basic steps on how to do a opportunity, what the workflow is, so I can share that with you as well if you need it. All right, but the big thing to know here, right? So a couple big things that they've changed. First of all, as you guys have probably seen, if not, this purple dot really wants you to pay attention to it. This marketing tab right here is only available on listings, all right? But it's really cool. What it does is it updates what marketing material might be best for you, depending on what stage your transaction is in. So if you are working on a listing and you're working on building the relationship, right, as this listing might be, right, it'll show me different marketing templates that would cultivate that listing to sign with me. Once I move this opportunity to, let's say, under contract or an active listing, it would show me instead all active or under contract listing posts, okay? So I'll come back to show you how it changes as we pull the opportunity down the pipeline. But for now, just know this exists. So it is very cool. and come on over to the Documents tab, which is where the real fun begins with DocuSign. Bless you. Now, this is the most crucial thing for you to know. It's a newer feature like in the last year or so, but I do still see agents are not using this, that you can auto add all of your forms into your DocuSign room with just selecting the checklist first. So on the left-hand side, so I'm on the Documents tab in my opportunity. On the left-hand side, it says pick checklist type. If I make sure to select a checklist first, before clicking start a transaction on the right side, it will automatically add all the forms I need for that specific transaction. So for example, if this one is a North Carolina listing, let's say, and I select that checklist, okay, you'll see on the left-hand side, it did a couple things. It added the folder. So this is for compliance, and I will circle back to this. This is to make sure this is your checklist for all the forms that you need when your listing goes live, under contract, and close. If you selected a buyer opportunity, just a heads up, these checklists will be different, and that's okay. It's just related to the buyer. But when you click on that under buyers, you will just notice that there's only 2 forms under the consultation on the left. So you can just click on down, and I'll come back to the compliance side. All right, but what to know here is if you select the checklist first, it will add automatically to your DocuSign room any of these forms marked with this blue DS. Okay, so Sabra and your awesome staff went in and decided which form should automatically pull into your DocuSign room now that I click start a transaction. Okay, so you can't go back. Once you start a transaction, if you didn't already pick the checklist, it won't auto add the forms. No biggie, obviously you can add your forms manually, but this is a huge time saver because it adds all, 8, 10 forms that you need initially to start your transaction. And of course, it will prompt you to log in to DocuSign the first time each day for security reasons. So this is a password you do have to remember, unfortunately. All right, and that'll add you into your DocuSign room. Okay, so as you can see, what I did was I selected the checklist, so now I have all of these forms automatically added in. Okay, so that's a great thing because it's a time saver. However, I have heard from agents that, what if I don't need all of these forms to start, right? Or how do I organize what I'm looking at? Okay, so what I'm going to show you next is how you can organize your DocuSign room into folders and archive any forms that you might not need. Okay, so what you're looking at here, it auto adds all 13 forms into one folder here. A little overwhelming, especially as you start to get them signed. All the copies of the form come back as a separate copy of the form once it's signed, right? So you're looking at, if you get all these forms signed, right, 26 copies. So let's talk about organization for your sake, okay? So on the top right here, you'll see this actions button. Okay, so the blue button that says actions on the top right has the option to add folder. Okay, I do recommend adding in a folder. How you name your folders is up to you. Some folders I like to use, if it's a listing, I like to have my listing docs, my contract docs, and my closing docs separated. So if you want to name this listed, right, or your listing paperwork, whatever you want to name it, if you want label it, your executed contracts, your executed paperwork, whatever you'd like to name it. Do you create folders, Jenna?
Yeah, I have before, but it's not something we do on a regular.
Do you have any recommendations of the folder names? Listing forms, under contracts, closing.
Yeah, if you've got the different stages like that for buyers, it's really no need.
Right. True. Thanks. All right, so you can go ahead and create any of those folder names here. It's super easy to move them into different folders. You can simply click on the form and drag it up, and it will move it into another folder here. So I could go ahead and get all my listing paperwork into one folder. And then I can have my contract paperwork in the second folder. Okay, and of course you can move all the ones that would pertain. And you can see you can drag back and forth. Now, if there's certain forms you don't need in here, right, it does always add, for example, the lead-based paint disclosure. Okay, I don't need that all the time, especially if it's not built before 78. So if I want to get rid of that, I can simply check on that checkbox. Okay, so if you want to clean up the forms you're looking at, simply check on the checkbox and you'll see that this bulk action menu appears up here. Okay, now these icons, they don't tell you what it does, but if you hover your mouse over it, it will pop up telling you what that does. So you can come in here and you can delete some of the forms, but I might recommend archiving it either way so that you can always grab it back. Of course, totally up to you. Certain forms it will not let you delete, so it'll tell you if not, but in this case, I clicked on archive, so I'll select archive, right? So I can clean up my forms, like this is not a firm exclusive, for example. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and archive this one as well. Of course, I can select multiple to archive all at once. All right, so this is really important how to get back to your archive, primarily because agents tend to get stuck in the archive and quote unquote lose all their forms, and it's alarming. So just so you guys know how you get back to your archive forms, this drop down menu, okay, so under this top menu at the top, drop down menu will give you the option to change it. Active documents is the default, but if you want to get back to your archived, right, you can get your archived or all, right? The problem is what I really want to stress to you is a lot of times agents will accidentally click on archive or purposefully, and all they can see is either a blank screen or just these docs, and they can't find all of their active documents. So it will stay on this archived option until you manually change it back, and then you can find all of your active documents immediately. Just a heads up on that. Feel free to jump in with questions anytime. Of course, you can add further forms by clicking the blue add button on the top right to add those forms from DocuSign, which is what we talked about in the DocuSign 101 class, right? Those editable forms. In today's class, I'm going to show you how you can actually do host in-person signing with these editable forms. That'll be one of the first things that we do. So I'll show you how if you are sitting with a client at an appointment and you just want to pass your iPad or your computer to them, they can sign sitting right next to you. Okay, and you can do that with these DocuSign forms, the ones that have this blue form icon. Okay, these icons do matter. I'll mention more about that. All right, another thing we're going to do is talk about pulling in PDFs and editing that as well. And you'll see you have the option to add that right from your computer. So if an agent emails you an offer as a PDF signed by their clients, you can always save it to your computer and add it to your DocuSign room to get that signed by your clients. And I'll show you that as well. Okay. So the first thing that I want to show you is that host in-person signing, like I said. So let's say I'm going on my listing appointment and I'm going to go ahead and have them sign, let's say the exclusive right to sell and the residential property disclosure, whichever forms that you would like them to sign. Okay, the first step would be to make any edits. Okay, so step one in host in-person signing is very much like regularly working with your forms in DocuSign. We would click on the form to edit that. Okay. Opening up the form will autofill any information onto the form. So the forms do autofill back and forth. So if you put, let's say, the address on this form, right? If you don't already have it, it will autofill back and forth on all of your forms in this specific DocuSign room. So step one is I pull open the form to start editing it, right? So I would want to go through and anything that I want to fill out, I would go through as the agent and fill in the form in its entirety. Of course, there are ways that you can print and handwrite in these forms. Again, I will cover that as well. But in this practice here, we're trying to bring this fully typed up form on our appointment so that you can explain it and they can sign it right next to you. Okay, so I'm filling out the form, and once I'm done filling that out, I can click Save on the top here. Okay, so it's kind of hiding. All right, so of course I would go through each and every one of these pages and click Save and Close on the top. I'd fill in the form as much as I need to and click Save and Close. All right, and I would do that for any of the forms before my appointment, okay? So this is me preparing before I go on my appointment. I'm going to prep my forms for them to sign, okay? So again, this next part is also prepped before your appointment. I'm going to set this up so they can electronically sign in person when I get there, okay? How do I do that? First, I'm going to create an envelope, okay? So I'm going to select the forms. So those check boxes are the forms that I want to add to an envelope, okay? So if there's one or multiple forms you want them to sign in person, go ahead and select that. And then we're going to create an envelope with these, okay? We're going to create an envelope and save it as a draft. There's a couple important steps though. So once you click the check boxes, that's when this bulk action menu appears, and we want to click on the pencil or pen icon rather. That one says to create an envelope, right? This is what we do anytime that we are electronically sending our forms to be signed. All right, so in this case, I'm going to go ahead and select my clients. Anyone that would need to sign it, it would pull their information over from command. So in this case, I'm representing seller. And it usually does take about 30 seconds or so to pull that information over from command, because it pulls their contact information from their contact record in command, which is why it's important that we start the transaction in command initially. All right, once it loads, it'll show you the envelope, okay? Now, there are two key steps of what we need to do to allow us to do in-person signing when we get there. Okay, those two key steps are we need to change needs to sign to in-person signer, second one down. So you're going to change again, next to the first client, you'll change it from needs to sign, which is what defaults on, to in-person signer. And I'm going to do that for each person that needs to sign in person. Okay, when I do that, you'll see that it takes away their email address, instead adds a new field that says the host name. That's talking about whose device they'll be signing from. So if me as the agent is bringing my tablet or my computer for them to sign, right, I would be the host. Okay, so you can put in your name and your email for the host name. Okay, so that's step one of what you would, the essential things to know in this envelope. Again, I changed it to in-person signer and then put in the host name as myself as the agent and my email, the email that's connected to my DocuSign account. I don't know, but it keeps doing it. It's like,
know if they like knew about it. Really annoying.
Good question. I can submit a ticket. I don't know. Because sometimes I'll be like, are you guys working on that? They're like, we don't know if you don't submit a ticket. And I'm like, come on, just know everything. But yes, it is annoying. So the second really important step that you do here, okay? So in-person signer, that was the first one. Two, we need to change this email subject so we know that this is the, because we're going to save this as a draft, okay? Because you can only do in-person signing on the e-signature side of DocuSign. I'll explain more about that. Okay, that's why this is advanced. We need to change this to whatever you want to change it to so you know it's the in-person signing, right? So go ahead and put in, let's say, in-person signing. Okay. And we're going to save this as a draft, okay? So I'm going to come up to actions and click save and close. But again, before you do that, just make sure the two things you did is changed it to in-person signer. You are listed as the host name. And we have in-person signing in the email subject or something to that extent. Okay. And we're going to go to actions and save and close. Okay. And this is all the stuff we just did was before my appointment. Okay. I prepped my forms before the appointment. So now I am driving to that appointment. I'm doing my whole elevator pitch and I'm going to have them sign in person. Okay. And for this next part, they do have to be on the e-signature side of DocuSign to actually sign in person, okay? So what that means is most of the rest of the world uses DocuSign, right, on e-signature. KW has a special Rooms version that's specifically created for real estate agents, okay? So when you hear that you have a DocuSign Rooms account, right, that is different than what the rest of the world uses, which is e-signature, okay? Now you have both accounts with KW, but certain features are only available on the e-signature side, okay? Which is very easy to switch to, but does that make sense? Well, it'll make a little more sense. I'll take any questions on that, right? We have the rooms right here, the DocuSign rooms. But if you click on your headshot on the top right of DocuSign, you can click switch to e-signature, okay? There's not many reasons you would do this. This is the main reason I have found that you ever need to switch to e-signature, okay? is that if you want them to sign in person, that feature is possible on the e-signature side. So I am now at my appointment, okay? And I'm logged into DocuSign, and you can see, right, I clicked my headshot on the top right, and I click switch to e-signature, right? And of course, you can have this up before you go, all right? But you might want to jot down these next steps. I think I have notes on this as well, these steps. I do on my end. If you're on Zoom, if you want to drop your email in the chat, I'll grab your email and send you or I think I have a video and written out notes on how to do this because I know it's a couple steps here. I'll send that out after class today if you can drop your email in the chat. Okay, so now to have them sign in person. We're on the e-signature side, right, which we access by clicking your headshot on the top right. And we switch to e-signature. And see, now that we're on the e-signature, I can see that because it's giving me the option to switch to rooms, right? Which we don't want to do right now, but that confirms I'm in e-signature. But now to have them sign it, we go to manage and then drafts, right? Remember how I told you we saved that as a draft? So we are going to drafts, so manage and drafts. And that's where I have that set up. Okay, see now it says in-person signing. It is important to have that changed in case you do this a couple different times. You can easily see which one it is they're supposed to sign. Okay, and now you're going to see what it looks like for them when they go to sign it. Okay, I'll show you it. So again, all I did from here is I'm in manage and drafts. That's key, drafts. And then I click continue. It's going to tell you to pass the device to your client. I think it gives you the option to make any further edits one more time, and then it will tell you to pass the device to your client. All right, so I clicked on continue. It's going to show me what I'm having them sign one more time, right? I'm just overviewing this. I'm clicking next. It'll give you one more preview of what it is you're about to pass them to sign. I'm not doing anything here, right? Because I edited it, but I can see that client number 1, the client labeled as the yellow dot, will be able to fill out the residential property disclosure, okay? And then client number 2 will be able to sign for that. And I'll show you it because I'll show you exactly what the client sees. Okay, so I'm just confirming that looks set up correctly. And I click send. Okay, so this is the part where it's going to tell me to pass the device over to my client. All right, so we're going to click sign now. And it says me as the agent, assigned you as the host, right, for Albus Dumbledore, great guy. And it's telling me to pass the control of signing session to the signer, okay? And it's giving them these steps of what to do, and I'll click on start. All right, so pass that over to your client, and then so you hand it to them, they click continue, and you'll see now that they're going to be able to sign the form and fill it out. So the first person who's going to sign here. So this is exactly what it looks like for your clients. If I click on start, it'll take me down to the first field to fill out. Just a heads up. So the first time that they go to sign it, of course, it does show them what it is you set their signature up as. So if you misspelled their name or they sign with a middle name and you didn't put that in there, they can absolutely change that right here or even draw their signature. So they get that option the first time that they go and sign. So as you can see, right, it does always take them down to the next required initial field. But if this is the residential property disclosure for them to fill out, right, they can just scroll and start filling it out. Just a heads up, it does always take them down to the next signature field, but they can go through and fill out the entire form. Okay, so they can check the check boxes, fill it out, which this is really helpful perhaps to do in front of you so you can guide them on any questions that they might have on the form. They would go through and fill out the entire form. Clicking next would take them to the next initial box, but they do have the option to fill it out, initial. Let me just show you what it looks like for the second client, because the second client does not have the option to do that. So when the second client goes to sign, they will not have the option to fill in the form. They will only have the option to sign for that. And once both parties have signed, that's when you as the agent will receive a copy of the form. All right. All right, so this is what it looks like when your clients get done signing the form too. So this is helpful for you guys to see so you know what it is that they're doing on their side and what's user error. All right, so once they finish signing, right, they click on finish. All right, and they do have an option to have this form emailed to them or printed, or both for that matter. So if they want to print it, they can click on print or email it, right? Especially if they're signing this from your device. They can email it straight to them and click continue. All right, so it does say this is the essential step right here. They have to click continue in order for you to receive the fully signed form, just a heads up. That continue button is what will now officially solidify their signature. So far what has happened is client number 1 has filled out the residential property disclosure, let's say, and you have received a notification as the agent, thank you guys, that client number 1 is signed, okay? Well, to get both clients to sign now, right, I need my other client to sign. In the case that there are 2 clients, okay, I'm going to do those same steps again, right? So I'm in the e-signature side, right? And I know I'm in the e-signature side because if I wasn't, right, it would say switch to e-signature. So I know I'm on the right side here. Okay, so now, right, previously I told you guys, since we saved it as a draft, we go to drafts. Okay, so the only difference when person number 2 goes to sign is now it's no longer in your drafts, right? This is where we started the process. So when person number 2 goes to sign, that'll just be in your inbox here, okay? And I can see that form right here. Okay, I can see the status of it. And I can click to sign right here to have person number 2 go to sign. And again, this is specifically in-person signing, okay? That is the time that you use this e-signature side. So it's telling me again what I do as the agent. It's giving me those steps. I can click on start. And now it's telling me to pass the device to my other client, okay? I want you guys to see this so you can see that client number 2 is not going to be able to fill out the residential property disclosure. They're just going to be able to sign for it, okay? Of course, it verifies their name and signature, but you'll see now as client number 2, I can't go through and change any of the checkbox that the first client did, right? I can only sign for those answers, okay? So of course, client number 2 would go through that same process, sign all the boxes, and once they've signed and click continue, that's when you receive the signed copy back to your DocuSign room. Questions on in-person signing? There is one before, if you have any questions, one more thing to know is once they're done signing in front of you, right, you will need to log back into your account to see that signed form. So I'm going to show you what it looks like once it comes back signed. Any questions on in-person signing? Feel free to shout those on the Zoom or put them in the chat. Of course, DocuSign allows you to send your forms electronically via email, right? But especially if someone isn't particularly tech savvy, you can always have them sign it in person right next to you. All right, so now that I have this form here, it is waiting for me as the agent to sign, okay? But I can go back to my DocuSign room by clicking on my headshot on the top right and switch to room. So that's the main thing that you'll need to know. If after they sign it in person, you need to switch back to rooms because you're an e-signature. Again, I know the switching of e-signature to switching to rooms is a little confusing. So again, I'm here for questions. However, once that form is fully signed by all parties, it'll come back to the Documents tab of your DocuSign room as a fully signed PDF. I think I need to sign it as the agent. Yeah. And just a heads up too, right? If you need to resend, right? So for right now, just so you guys know, the document does not come back fully signed until all parties have signed that form, right? So I do have the initial copies of the form, but it will not come back fully signed. It will not come back to my room until all parties have fully signed. So if you're trying to see the status of where that is, you can always check in the envelopes tab. So you can find out what's holding up the form from coming back, right? I can click on the envelopes tab here and click on the envelope in question, and I can see, okay, which parties have signed, how did they sign, and who's holding it up. And whoever's holding up the process, you can click resend, and it will resend the document only to the people or person who has not signed the form. So you're only resending that to the one person who hasn't signed it. Okay, and I'll actually log into my email because the next thing I want to show you guys is you can email forms directly from your email into DocuSign. So let's say if an agent on the other side has a PDF of the offer and they send it signed by their clients, right? Instead of downloading the form to your computer and then uploading it to DocuSign, you can just forward the email straight to DocuSign and they'll put the form in your DocuSign room. So that will help expedite things. And also another cool feature of this email feature I'm going to show you is you can, let's say if I want to store an entire PDF of my email exchanges with clients, I can just forward that email to my DocuSign room and it'll save it as a PDF, the entire email exchange. So I really like that feature. That's what I'm going to show you guys next. So if you want to hop into your email, we'll need to be there and I'll show you also your DocuSign email address for this. One sec, it'll verify my identity here. Okay, and as you can see, right, here's my DocuSign request for me to go and sign it as well, sitting right here at the top. So all I would need to do is click review documents to sign that on my end and have the fully signed document appear in my DocuSign room. Now to achieve what I was talking about, again, let's say an agent on the other side emailed you the offer to purchase. Okay, okay, so what we're going to do, first thing we need to do is know what our DocuSign email address is. So here I'm just saving an offer to show you guys this with. So from DocuSign, okay, depending on where you are, if you're in an envelope, if you followed me, you can X out of that. We need to find out what your DocuSign email address is by clicking on your headshot on the top right, and then preferences. All right, so again, headshot on the top right, and then preferences, and then inbox details. So again, headshot top right, preferences, inbox details. Okay, that will show you your DocuSign email, which you can change. So I think by default, it's some funky numbers and letters might have your name in it. If you want to just change it to something like your first and last name, your first name dot last name. Okay, this stays the same all the time. So what we're going to do is if you do change this, we're going to save it. Okay, this is like your internal admin DocuSign email address that will allow you to zip your forms right to your DocuSign rooms. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to save that email to my my Gmail address book. Okay, just put it in Gmail once, it'll remember it, because right, that's not a very user-friendly, easy email to remember per se. But if I just put it in once, no biggie, right? So I'm going to go ahead and copy my email. And I'm going to go into, let's say, my Gmail account. And I'm going to put in what that is. So if you put it in one time, it will save it after that, right? But you can just type it in. I know it's a little tedious to type in, but then it'll be in there. Okay. Now, all you have to do, and you can see I was practicing this before class, all you have to do in order to email an offer to purchase or any form, let's say the agent on the other side sent you a PDF copy of the form. I want it in my DocuSign room so I can add signature fields for my client to sign. Okay, that's the goal here. So what this number is at the top is just simply my room ID. So you'll see, so I'm going back to DocuSign, and I'm going back to whichever room I'm currently in. And of course, you can get to your rooms by clicking on rooms at the top, or your dashboard will show you your most recent activity. So we're just going back into our DocuSign room. Okay, and you'll see at the top here this ID number. Okay, and it says copy and paste this room ID number into your email subject in order to send documents into this room. So I do need the pound before it as well, hashtag. Okay, so we can copy that. Okay, I'm going to go back to my email. Okay, so again, this practice, I could forward the email. So if like the agent on the other side sent me an email with the PDF attached, I could forward that email, right? So simply forward it. The catch is you do need to change the email subject. So, and I can show you when you're forwarding emails, how to change the email subject in Gmail. But all we need to have is that room number in here, and it will automatically add the whatever PDF is attached to that DocuSign room. So I'll show you that. I'll click send. It does take just a couple seconds for it to make it there. So in the meantime, I'll show you like how you could, if you are forwarding it, I just find it's a couple extra steps to change the email signature. If you use Gmail, like your KW email in Gmail, just so you guys know, right, when you're forwarding emails, to change the subject line, you have to click on this arrow with the drop down to click edit subject. So that, right, I would just need it to have, in most cases, if I'm forwarding it, it probably says something like offer, signed by my clients, whatever it is, I need to change that to just be the hashtag and then the room number. And then when I send that, it'll ignore everything in the email and just push that offer or whatever attachment is on there. So now I'm going to come back to in there that emailed offer to purchases right in there. Okay, again, so that's how you would get a form straight from your email into DocuSign, okay? If you want to get an entire, like your email thread, right? It's really important for you guys to, if you have a conversation that you have between you and the agent or whatever the case, you and your client, right? I might want to store that email thread in my DocuSign room as a centralized spot so I can always come back and reference that, okay? So if you want to do that, if you want to store an entire email thread in your DocuSign room, okay, very similar steps. Okay, I'm going to my email. And again, I do have steps on these, so if you guys dropped your email in the Zoom chat, I will send these steps as well. If you're in person, I'll grab your email after this. The way that you would forward an entire email thread as a PDF, okay, let's see, is this one? Okay, so how I would do that is I would forward it. So I want this entire email thread as a PDF. So I'm forwarding it. And I'm going to change the email subject again. So edit email subject. There's just one additional step that you have to take. So we did the room number, right? So it's hashtag the room number. I don't think it matters the order, but it's hashtag PDF is the first one. I'll try. I don't think the order matters. Hashtag PDF hashtag the room number. Okay. And again, we got that room number just simply from the top of your DocuSign room, right? It's on the top of all of them right here. So the ID, you do need to put the hashtag or pound sign. Okay. And then if you put hashtag PDF first and send it to that DocuSign email, right? That is now just in here. It'll automatically save this as a PDF email thread in my DocuSign room. Thanks. And you do always need to refresh when you go back in. In order to see that, it does usually take a couple minutes depending on the thread itself as well. So you might need to refresh a couple times. Oh, actually, sorry. Just hasn't come in yet. So I'll show you that once it comes in here. Should be shortly. Okay, so outside of that, right? Following through, here it is. So to give you an idea of what this looks like. So this is that forwarded, email thread that I just forward straight in as a PDF. So now I always have this entire PDF of the email thread right in my DocuSign room. I really like that feature to cover your whatever word will be appropriate there. All right, so any questions on emailing into DocuSign? I do want to show you how you can add now, if you did email that form in, how you can, of course, add signature fields and text fields to these PDFs that you're adding in here, right? So in the case that you did, the client on the other side sent you the offer signed by their clients, right? I forwarded that email right into my DocuSign room with the steps I just showed you. And so now I can open it and I'll be able to add fields to it, right? Since it's a PDF, right? And I can tell before I even open it that it's a PDF because this icon looks different than the blue form icon means I can just type in it. Obviously this orange or red PDF icon means a PDF, meaning I cannot change it. I can't type in it, okay? And that's great because it preserves signatures, okay? But what's cool about DocuSign is it does allow you to edit PDFs, which programs do that like Adobe, which are hundreds of dollars. So if you ever need to edit a PDF, all right, that first step would be get it into your DocuSign room. Now we did it forwarding it from an email, but of course you can click add on the top right and click computer to just add it right from your computer. All right, the next step is I'm going to add it to an envelope. So in order to edit a PDF, it does have to be in an envelope first. So I know I usually tell you guys, we click on the form in here to edit it. That's true if it's an editable form, okay? But since this is a PDF, the first step is we need to check that box and pull it into an envelope, right? And that's by clicking the icon at the top that says create envelope. Okay, the pen icon. And these steps will look familiar. It will not ask you to select the recipients because it doesn't have the signature fields on it already, like the fillable forms do. Okay, so what we're doing here is you can add the recipients in. So whoever is going to be signing. Okay, so I'm putting in my clients here. Again, it doesn't pull it over because it Ray doesn't have the signing fields yet, and I'll show you how we're going to add that. Oh, what?
You click on that little icon beside BJ Kennedy.
Perfect.
You click on bring contact.
And just pull them right from there.
And then whoever you already have in there.
So you don't have to type them in. Perfect. Yeah, so this is your address book, guys, right here, that icon. So you can grab those so you don't have to remember what they are. So whereas when you're working on a fillable form, it automatically pops up the option to add them in, right? It tells you to select them. In this case, you just need to add them and then click the address book. All right, and then we can click on next.
Then add the message.
Do I have to? Oh, yeah, if you guys want to, you can change the email subject. It'll make it easier for you to find which forms, are sent in each part of the envelope. So if this one has the offer to purchase, right, you can see that right from here, or of course you can change that. I would especially change it if you're sending multiple forms, it does show you which form it is sending right here, but you can make any changes to that and click on next. Okay, so this is where the real fun starts with PDFs that allows you to edit it. Okay, so there's two main ways that you'll want to edit these forms. One is when you're adding signature and initial fields to the form. So remember in this example, right, we said that the agent on the other side sent us the form, let's say signed by the buyers, just use your imagination. So now I need to add initial boxes for my sellers to sign. Okay. So I'm going to show you the most efficient way to do that because, of course, this is a lot of pages to be manually adding initial boxes to, okay? So you can actually copy and paste those down. If you click on the initial field, so on the left-hand side, you'll see that these are all blue because it corresponds with the color of the contact in the dropdown, right? So in this case, I'm going to click the initial box, line it up where I want it, and click to drop it. Then in the drop down at the top, let's say I want to add my other client to be able to sign this. So when I click the other client, you'll see all the fields will turn yellow, right, corresponding to that client. I can select the initial field and lay that next to it. Right, so that would be a lot of steps to go through and do that 13 times in a row, 12 times in a row, whatever it is. So instead, I can do it one time and then copy and paste them down, just a heads up. So to copy and paste them, so you want to select both the fields. You can do that in a couple ways, but I like to drag my mouse in a square around them, and you can see it selects both of them. So when they're both highlighted, you can then click Control C if you are on a PC, or Command C as in copy on your keyboard if you have a Mac. So again, the shortcut for copy is Command C if a Mac, and then Control C if you have a PC. And I do need to make sure they're selected first, right? So that's why I drew a box around them here. And then I did Control C to copy it. So now I want to paste it, right? For the next initial boxes, I'm going to scroll down and click on the form wherever I usually click on it so I can guide it where I want it to paste it in general. And then you're going to click Control V as in Victor, or Command V as in Victor. So that's the paste shortcut, Control V or Command V. And then you can see I can line it up. So if it was slightly off, no biggie, I can realign it real quick. Scroll to the next page, click, paste. Control V as in Victor or Command V. All right, so I can go through and add all the initial fields, okay? So I'm going down and clicking to paste those in. I haven't clicked the last few times and it knows where, so that's good. There is something that you guys need to know for signature fields. Signature fields are different. When you are adding signature fields, okay? So this is only when you're adding signature fields to a PDF. In order for it to in order for it to date their signature, you need to make sure you're adding both fields when you're adding it for a signature. So if I scroll down to the place right where they would actually put their full signature instead of initials, so instead I'd select the signature option and go ahead and drop that. Okay, but there is one key item that you need to do, and that's to just manually add the date field. DocuSign will automatically add the date when they go to sign it, as long as you set this up correctly with this date signed field. And again, this is only when you're editing a PDF, right? When you're working with an editable form that's already created, they already did all that for you, right? But in this case, if I need them to sign it, if I'm setting it up like this, I need to make sure I'm adding the date field manually for that to appear. Okay. Feel free to chime in with any questions. That is the main difference between the initial fields and the signing fields. When you're adding it to a PDF, we need a date signed field. So as I've mentioned, right, all of these fields on the left-hand side, right, are for your clients. So if you're to add, let's say, a text box. So let's say on one of these, I want to be able to write something as the agent, right? Or cross something out and edit it, right? If I use any of these fields, it will require your client to fill that out. So if I'm adding a text field, for example, and I want to write in it as the agent, okay, since it's blue, right, if it's a certain color, it will require your client to fill that out. And that's great. You know, if there is a field about personal property that's conveying and you want them to be able to fill that out, great, add that text box. But if it's a field that you want to fill out as the agent, okay, that is a slightly different step. And what I did there, just so you guys know, you can delete anything. So if you randomly add a text box or signature field somewhere random, no worries, just simply click on it and you'll have the option to delete it on the right hand side. You'll have options to edit the field in general. Cool. And you can click delete. All right, so now if I want to add a field for me to fill out, right, as the agent, this is the only time that I see, feel free to chime in otherwise, that I change it on the left-hand side, right? So on this very far left-hand side toolbar, we're primarily on the standard fields. It's all for your clients based on the color that they are in this dropdown, okay? Now, if I need to put in a field I need to fill out, I'm gray, okay? I'm gray, I'm not gonna be associated to a color. So agents are the gray color here, and that's found all under the pre-fill tools. It's the main time I ever switch this on the left-hand side. So what you see here is if you need to, as the agent, let's say, strike through their name was spelled incorrectly. If you need to strike that through and put in their correct name, right? This is where that strike through sits. So here's your line. So you could strike through any incorrect information. Right? And you can add a text box so that you could put in the correct information. And as you can see, when I drop the fields, right? So you can see when I drop the fields, if it's blue, that means it's selected. Okay. And when it's selected, that's when I'll have the opportunity to make it bigger, right? That's not a very big text box. So if I need to drag that out, I can simply put my mouse on the corners and pull that out, right, to extend it. Same with any strike through, right? Of course, if you're making changes to the document, right, you could always add initial boxes so that they can then sign for any changes, right? But that main takeaway is if it's a field they need to fill out, right, that's a standard field. You want it to be a color. If it's a field that you need to fill out as the client, or I'm sorry, as the agent, that's when you click on that pencil icon on the left-hand side to access these gray boxes. And you can edit this completely as the agent. Anything to add?
Gray boxes, all parties who have access to the document can see it.
Mhm.
Blue is the person.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yellow person can see it.
It's interesting.
And there's a blue and the second person's not gonna see
Yeah, that's a good point. Oh, I wonder, there used to be a way to change it. Maybe
it.
there's
Yeah,
not.
if you have a blue one, so if you go to like, yeah, do a text box for blue.
And I'll repeat this online
right,
for you
it's not
guys.
changed to required or read only, switch it back and forth, but again, it's.
It's not, yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, to repeat that for anyone online, like if you do add a blue text box or yellow text box, only the client, you know, who's associated with that color can see it. Kind of like on the residential property disclosure, I get like they can't see any of the fields, but they could see once they filled it out.
Yeah, but at the time of signing, it's not gonna show up.
So I guess that would be the main time to use like the 1, 2, like the staggering 2, or another good time to use that so
Yeah,
they could see
That's
it.
why, like, if it's something that all parties need to see, just do it in the gray. And then.
That's great
And
advice.
then just have them initial beside it, instead of it being under just one person, because they'll be so confused, I'm initialing something.
Right. What is this? Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so that takeaway again was if you are putting in a box that all parties need to see, the recommendation is put it in as a gray box, right? Especially if you're making a change, right? Meaning the gray box, meaning your fields, right? So then all parties can see the gray boxes. Again, only, you know, the party that's marked as a blue dot can see those blue text boxes and vice versa. So if they're signing for a change, they wouldn't be able to see that unless it was a gray text box. If you have any questions on that, please just let me know. Happy to help. One more odd thing on PDFs, just really important to know, is, okay, I added, let's say, all these text boxes and I typed in it. Okay, I can't just save this here. I can't just print this out. This copy of the PDF will not show up in my DocuSign room until the parties have signed, all parties have signed, right? So a lot of agents will get confused where they edit this PDF and they click send and they go back to the original PDF and don't see any of those edits that they added. That's true. You will not see any of these edits that you're adding until after all parties have signed. Just let me know if you have questions. Do you ever use, Jenna, the scheduling, the send later feature? Yeah, so if you guys haven't seen it, there is a drop down arrow next to the word send on the bottom right, and it allows you to send later. If you're like me and I work like at 1 in the morning, right? It'd be more appropriate, let's say, to send them their forms at 8 in the morning like a normal person. I could go ahead and send that later. Does it give you just a time that you can select? Yeah. All right, so that's just a good option if you want to schedule that in advance. You can click on send.
A lot of times we use that too, we'll tee it up before our, like, either Zoom call or buyer consultation or whatever it is, and then to have it send like half an hour after they have that consultation.
I love that.
That way, if they're on the run or whatever, they don't have to stop and do what paperwork they already said that they were gonna send out. It just automatically sends.
What a
out their
good use for
appointment.
that. For those of you online, what Jenna said is they'll use the send later feature often to schedule that for, let's say, 30 minutes after the listing appointment or the buyer appointment just ended, so that if they're on the go, they don't have to, you know, go back to the computer and send off all of those forms. After they said the forms will be sent over, it just automatically goes about 30 minutes after the appointment ends. That's brilliant. Talk about efficiency at its finest. Any questions that you guys want to cover? We're approaching the last 3 minutes of class. I'm happy to do any Q&A or show you anything that you need with DocuSign or opportunities, or if you have any other thoughts of fun features. Of course, with DocuSign, feel free to book an appointment anytime with me, and I'm happy to go through the process in person, especially if you're newer to DocuSign. This was, of course, the advanced DocuSign class. So if you want to learn the basics, on kwbresources.com, that's where the video is that walks you through the entire workflow. So if you hear a new agent scrambling to use DocuSign, point them here. It's for our office specifically. And if they need to meet in person, of course, they can click I need tech help on the top right. It's free for them to meet with us. And we show them DocuSign, get their forms in, and all that stuff. Let me know if you guys have any questions. I'll be sticking around for a couple minutes. But other than that, yay, DocuSign. We love DocuSign. And those of you on the chat, I'll send over an email that overviews today's class. Yeah, my pleasure. And I'll grab your emails right now. So, I mean, I don't even think you need notes on this. Thanks for coming.
When I sign into